Yeah, welcome.
And listeners to the first episode segment of What TikTok Taught Me.
Try and say that fast. I feel like there's a reason you're doing this introduction and that I cannot say.
I was going to say, I don't have an issue with it.
Okay, I have
What
an issue.
TikTok taught me. So Ben and I didn't have enough on our plate, so we've decided to start a podcast.
Yeah, I think one way to look at it is that we wanted to make a podcast, and another way is it's like we wanted to turn our TikTok obsession in like to be tax deductible.
For it to be, yes, and productive.
And productive.
Yes. Cool. So what TikTok taught me?
I think what TikTok taught me, the premise is that our TikTok feed is a pretty good representation of who we are at any given time.
Yes.
In that it encapsulates our very hidden thoughts about what we're finding interesting and relevant.
It's an incredible algorithm.
It's very good.
Well done, China.
Top notch. Top notch, yes. And so I think we were discussing it, and there's this idea that sometimes TikTok knows what I'm into way before I realize that it's something that I'm into or interested in.
Or it curates themes of our lives that we're not necessarily like privy to.
Yes. And I go through waves. Like sometimes TikTok will throw up a video that I couldn't get enough of 3 months ago. And I'm like, I've moved past that. I couldn't care about that at all anymore.
And it pivots. Yes. Much like we need to pivot in business. No, and so why is that important, I guess, in us starting Meet and Gather, another business? Why do people care about this?
I don't necessarily think that they should care at all.
No, but how are we convincing ourselves that people care about this?
Look, I think the premise, I think the reason people might find it interesting is for 2 reasons.
Not 3.
Not 3. One, I feel I get a lot of value from the TikToks that you send to me.
Yep.
And hopefully you get some
nice.
value from the ones that I send to you. And I think this gives us an opportunity to share or like curate like a collection of TikToks that we think are good, with a bit of a discussion that we can then share with people who aren't necessarily on TikTok.
Yes. Great. Love that.
Yeah.
Productive.
Reason 2.
I also my very first, and this is a kind of off the record, just intro version of what TikTok taught me, but that relates to this segment. I've kind of been doing a deep dive in like preparing for opening Meet and Gather of like how do people run businesses in 2024?
Yes.
And like what do people find interesting? And something that's come up a lot on TikTok is this idea of the founder story versus the business branding. Both important, but I think like hopefully people are able to understand more about Meet and Gather through us.
Yes.
As being Meet and Gather.
Totally. I think Meet and Gather is us.
Yeah.
Like it is like uniquely a bit of a collection of our different strengths. And I like the idea, like I really like this move from learning about a company through a really polished feed of how they want to project themselves to what are the people actually talking about in real time.
Yeah.
Because my background, I guess, in consulting or advisory, I feel like there is so much time where you're telling people what they should do, but not based on what it is that you actually do in practice.
Yes.
And I think this move probably goes a little bit towards, well, what did we actually do? What were we actually thinking about?
Yeah.
Whether we fail or succeed,
Yeah.
I think that there is something in trying to capture that.
So what can people expect from what TikTok taught me? Like what are the themes that rule our lives at the moment? It's business.
Certainly business.
Juggling. Juggling has negative connotations, but balancing lifestyle, marriage, family, business, living in your workspace, working in your home space. And keeping things light, because that's a lot of stuff.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
And look, met some of the audience, people who know us will already know this, but if you're kind of coming onto this fresh, we signed on to start this meet and gather co-working meeting space either 3 days after or 3 days before finding out that we were pregnant with our first child.
Yeah.
And I think so much baked into starting this business was us defining what we wanted our life to look like, where we truly shared bringing up that kid and raising that business. Something like that. And so as we kind of go through this, it is just finding our way about like, this works, this doesn't.
Yeah.
About, as you say, like juggling work-life balance has a negative connotation, but I want to see if we can find a way to make it positive.
Yeah, cool. So what TikTok taught me is us, I guess, for the week curating things that have caught our attention on TikTok, sharing them with each other and then discussing them.
Yes.
So let's dive in.
Yeah.
Did you want to start?
I'll start. So I don't know how you did this. Because this is our first episode, I just went through the hundreds of saved TikToks that I have.
Yeah.
And just picked out kind of the first 6 that jumped out. These aren't like the best 6 I've ever seen. These are just the first 6 that jumped out to me. And I can't remember which ones are necessarily the business versus which are the funny.
Fine.
But I think I have lent into more business related ones.
Great.
For this first go. So here's one, and this actually, I'll pass it over and then you can tell me what you see, but there's actually no audio on this one. This is just images.
It's just images. All right, I'll read it.
Yes.
Out. Oh, but there's sound.
There is sound, but it's just music.
It's just music. When a job interviewer asks, what's your biggest weakness? Interpret the question in practical terms rather than personality faults. Right, because most people would think,
There's more in that slide.
Yes,
that explains it, but I think when I've gone into interviews before, or like that kind of classic question comes up, and I think a lot of people don't ask that exact same question anymore, but there are many iterations of a theme about like what your biggest weakness is. Your inclination is to say something with a fixed mindset of a weakness. I'm not very good at spelling. Is something I'm not very good at, and so my inclination to think about weaknesses of mine would be to say that.
Yeah.
Whereas I think this post did a good job of like, that's not the way you should be answering or thinking about weaknesses.
Cool. The classic one that comes up for me is, I care too much.
Yeah, I'd work too hard.
Bullshit.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so the first slide says, sometimes I let people take advantage of me, or I take criticism personally are bad answers. I agree.
Yeah.
I'm too honest, or I work too hard, even if they believe you, make you sound like you'll be irritating to be
Yes.
irritating to be around, or you'll burn out. True. Instead, say something like, my biggest weakness with regards to this job is I have no experience with company's database platform. Great.
Yes.
Specific to the job.
It's specific to the job and can be easily changed. Like it is a weakness, but is solvable.
Yeah. Great. Or I don't have much knowledge about single specific aspect of this job yet, so it would take me some time to learn.
Yeah.
Great. Because it's going to take everyone time, everyone's going to go through that process anyway.
Yeah.
These are real weaknesses that are relevant to the job, but they're also fixable things that you'll correct soon after being hired. Personality flaws are not, and they're also none of the interviewer's business. They're also, I agree, but they're also subjective.
Yeah.
Like there's always light and shade, black and white to personality traits.
Totally. I always think that
either way.
Yes, totally. And I often think about when you are, particularly in a work context, finding out what someone's strength is also usually lets you know what their biggest weaknesses are. Because to be really strong in an area usually means that you've developed something at the expense of something else.
Yeah.
And there's probably a few different ways to unpack that, but like strengths don't just come on their own. They also have, it's two sides of the same.
Yeah. Strong work ethic can lead to burnout if it flips too much over to one side.
100%. Yes, that's right.
For you and I, leaning into this, like, our lifestyle is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Maybe we end up with no money.
Yes. True.
So a flaw just
Yeah.
means that we're learning how to use zero accounting.
Yes.
Yeah, and get on top of our finances.
Yeah.
Growth mindset.
Well, that's what I also liked about this, is I was reflecting on it, is it allows you to think about your weaknesses with a growth mindset.
Yes. Yeah.
So, what do you think your biggest weakness is?
Oh,
when
you're
it
gonna
comes
interview me,
to
okay.
Meet and gather?
When it comes to meeting,
Like starting this business, yeah.
okay, I'm going to take the format of
Take the
that.
format,
Yeah. I have attended meetings and events,
Yeah.
but I am still learning the best ways in which to host.
Yeah.
And so it will take me some time to flip my role.
Yeah.
But I think what I've learned as like a participant
Yeah.
is going to make that easy.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. And I think the way I would maybe tighten it up a bit when I think about you is that you've strength in like hosting or running events that are like weddings or celebratory, like purely for fun.
Yes.
And like you've got a teaching background
Yes.
for primary school kids. So there's a lot of overlapping skills that then can be brought into like a corporate meeting space.
Yeah, I guess if I was to not follow the format of that, my instinct is to go, I'm not comfortable, or I feel self-conscious around corporate groups
Yeah.
because I don't feel like I have anything to bring. But that's a personal, like, it's not a trait, but it's like, yeah, that's like a self-conscious thing as opposed to like a skill that I don't have.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, an insecurity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
What about yours?
I just came to this question, like it just popped into my mind as we were talking, so I haven't spent the last few days thinking of a good answer.
Okay.
I think my biggest weakness when it comes to this business that we're making strides towards is the discipline around prioritizing talking about finances. So the discipline to like make sure all of our expenses are in a spreadsheet, not just spread out through various different emails, or to make sure that we've got a bookkeeper on board and that all of our income is going into the right accounts.
Yes.
I think there's a weakness there around not necessarily the actual discipline of it, because it feels like it's not that complicated, or it's something that I could certainly learn. The weakness is not actively prioritizing it as things that are important as something else.
Yes.
And I need to get better at that.
Yeah, good answer.
Thanks.
You're hired.
Lucky.
Great.
Give us your first.
Okay. Let's go. Again, in no particular order. They're all a bit random, really.
Yeah, great.
Okay. To follow on from your like list format
Yeah.
type thing. Here is a video called Things People Share That Unfortunately Nobody Cares About. And I wanted to get your opinion as to whether you agree with this person or not.
Great.
Here's things that people share on social media that nobody gives a fuck about. Number one, your run/workout. That's great that you're in the gym, but I really don't care. I also don't care where you ran. The only exception is if you're like running for charity and you want to show people the progress because it's something you don't normally do. But if you're just a runner, I don't care. Unless you've ran in the shape of a penis, I really don't care. Number two, what song you're listening to. I'm guilty of this. I'm guilty of probably all of them at some point. I don't know why I like to share songs. Nobody gives a fuck. Nobody's looking at your Instagram story and saying, oh my god, Kimber's listening to an obscure band that I've never heard of. She might be the best person ever. I'm going to also go listen to this song. Number three, the classic, tagging yourself at places. And obviously an honourable mention for tagging yourself in a hospital. I still see people do this, or tag themselves at the gym, the cinema, whatever. I don't know why you want people to know exactly where you are. Call me paranoid, but that just seems like a wee bit of a safety issue. Number four, telling people...
Just before I continue on, this gives me very like early MSN Messenger internet vibes.
Yes.
Early Facebook.
Like Facebook users.
Yes.
Yes. Although it's now becoming Instagram users as well, because that's entering,
It's entering into the phase, but I just like that's really hits me as like there was an era where this was...
tagging in at places, letting people know every innermost thought.
Yeah. And what I think I'm going to end up talking about at the end of this video is I feel like we've stopped as a society potentially, or as like a millennial group, which is whose feeds we see, doing this blatantly. But I think people now try and do it more subtly.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
A safety issue. Number 4, telling people you can't sleep. Like sharing something like this on your Instagram at like 4 o'clock in the morning. First of all, what a shit club to join. Don't see the benefits of it. It can't be fun. Secondly, why are you telling people? What do you want them, like, what's the game plan here? Do you want them to think like, oh my god, she's fucking mental, she never sleeps? Because I sometimes want people to think that about me. I love telling people when I've not been able to sleep. I want people to look at me like I'm a fucking hero when I walk into work and tell them I've only had 3 hours sleep. So I get this. Right, I understand, but still, no one cares, apart from me, clearly. And number 5, probably the most annoying one on this list, is expressing any negative feelings without the context. Like if you put anything on your Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and it's like, so fucking angry. Unless you're willing to divulge what's made you angry, I don't care. Stop moaning for attention. Worse if it's like, heartbroken, absolutely heartbroken. I don't know if you've split up with someone, I don't know if someone's died. The fact that you're bombarding me, that's right, bombarding me, with the negative part, but not giving me any like the juicy gossip behind it, like the good part, it's just no fair. And I don't care.
Yeah, classic, love it. Very Facebook.
Yes. Especially that last one. I don't see that as much. It probably still happens, it's just not in our age group.
Yes. Do you know where I see it a lot?
What?
When I get 10 years ago today on Facebook updates.
Yeah.
I see a lot of that.
Yeah.
I think, so when I'd add to that list, again, thinking about Facebook, is anyone who's like, Merry Christmas, Happy Easter, like any kind of like generic like statement like that isn't particularly meaningful.
Yeah.
And this one is slightly more controversial. People saying happy birthday on Instagram, like making a big deal of someone's birthday, usually their parent, who is not on Instagram.
So they do it on Instagram?
Yeah, so they're like, oh, happy birthday to my dad, and then like posting photos
I see what
of
you're saying.
them, and it's like, your dad's not on Instagram.
It's not for them.
This is not for, this is you demonstrating your love.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
So I find that.
Do you think that one in particular is a little bit tit for tat? If somebody else has done it for you, do you feel obligated? I know you wouldn't.
Yeah.
You more generally, do you feel obligated to return the favour? So-and-so did a 5-story birthday message down memory lane for me. So I've now got to do that for them.
Maybe, but I think that's not quite what I'm saying. In that, like, if someone is on Instagram and their love language is doing that, and they did it for you, I think it makes a lot of sense for you to do it back. What I'm talking about is when you do that for someone who doesn't want it, who said they're not on the platform, they're not going to see it, they never think about doing it for you.
Yeah, you'd be better off just sending them a private message.
100%. It feels performative.
Performative.
And all of the things that
all
she
of this
was
is
listening
performative.
is still performative.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go through and see if we're both guilty of doing these things.
Yeah.
In our history.
Yeah.
Tagging ourselves doing exercise.
100%.
100%.
I'm most of this list.
That's
most
Strava.
guilty. Yeah.
That's Strava. That's like anytime I did park run, anytime I've gotten really into the gym.
Park run classic.
I'm insufferable. Yeah. And there's memories about like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when I was a Les Mills instructor. Yeah. Oh man. If anyone was friends with me at that point, like, I'm so sorry. Because, insufferable.
Yeah. So certainly fitness I am. I think another one that wasn't, I didn't necessarily do a lot in this post. Like a lot of these I didn't necessarily do, but I did share a lot of like one-line commentary that I thought was incredibly deep. That was not.
Yeah.
You know, like just like...
And it's that cryptic, it's the cryptic nature
yes.
of like saying, what she's saying about saying a negative emotion without any context. It's always contextual.
Yes.
If you're writing something that lacks context, it's for attention.
Yes, that's exactly right. I want someone to know that I'm smart thinking about this.
Yeah. I'm going to choose a song lyric that's cryptic enough that people don't know exactly what's happened, but they know that I'm feeling X.
Yes. Also, I never shared song lyrics, but I would try and find like the most in-depth book I could think of that I may or may not have been reading and like post a picture of that.
Really?
So people would know that I was like really interested in this book, but like I probably only got 2 or 3 pages into that before it became a bit performative.
Were you like a hold the cover out on public transport kind of person?
A little bit, yeah.
But the book's upside down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So another one is...
All right.
What was another one she had? Tagging yourself in at locations.
Yes.
I do it occasionally on Instagram stories.
Yeah. Usually with a picture of food.
Usually with a picture of food or you.
Yes.
Yeah. I no longer do it on Facebook. That used to be where you would do it.
Yeah.
And it would be without a picture. It would just be like Jacinta's ad. And it would just be to show that you were out doing something.
Yes.
Or your status would be heading out tonight to Academy nightclub. See you there.
Yeah.
Had the most wild night at Mooseheads.
Yeah. And look, I think the reason, hot take, because I'm coming up with the idea as I say it, but I think one of the reasons that people move towards Instagram is it actually kind of put a slight barrier between like our id or our impulse to share and sharing, because it required some kind of like image filter. Like there was a bit of a process there that meant that you had some time, even a little bit, to think, I'm not going to post this.
Yeah.
Whereas Facebook was always text status or check-in status, and that can just, you can just fire that out, have it out there, and then lives forever.
But Instagram noted that and then created stories.
Yes.
Where you could just be text as well.
Yeah.
Because they're like, people are curating things too much.
But I think what they got right is that stories, which I guess came from Snapchat, are ephemeral. That it's like a dorky thing that you said, but notionally it's supposed to be deleted forever after 24 hours.
Yes.
It's not, but that's the idea.
Yeah.
So your embarrassing comments don't get shown back to you 10 years later. Yeah,
anyway,
cool.
Thought that was funny.
Great.
Kind of shows our age too.
Oh, 100%.
I feel like Gen Z is a lot better at being subtle when they still want attention.
Yes, they still want attention, but it's way more cryptic, subtle, weird from my perspective.
Yes, like a whole carousel of images with no context. Like, okay.
Yeah.
So Gen Z actually does the no context thing all the time.
Yeah.
But how is it that that's cool, and when we do it, it's not? Is it just the fact that we're millennials?
Yeah, I feel like maybe at the time, not me, I don't feel like I ever had any danger of being close to cool, but I suspect when you were doing it, it was cool. It's just not cool in hindsight. Like looking back on it, it's cringe.
So Gen Z, once they're older, will look back and be like, posting a whole carousel of images that are blurry and have no context.
Yeah.
That was lame.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Like every media project I ever did.
The bucket.
Right. Okay.
On to number 2 from Benny.
Another one from me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got what I think potentially might be a short one.
Okay.
But I don't know
A
if
short
it's...
conversation?
Maybe. Okay. It's a short video. It's kind of meme related.
Yeah. You and I love the sound of our voices though, so...
Yeah, we'll see. Hit the one that's got Ross on it.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was his voice.
We don't know for sure. But in my head, it sounded something like this.
Okay, so
For those listening at home.
the image description
Yes.
it's a clip from Friends where Ross is doing an impression of what he thinks a dinosaur sounded like because they don't know for sure.
Yeah.
And the caption is, the cool middle manager explaining to his team what upper management has in plans for 2024.
Yeah. How does that hit you?
How does it hit me?
Yeah. Do you resonate with that? Like,
Do I resonate with it?
I thought that was hilarious. Like, I listened to that and I was like, 100%. That explains so well so many meetings that I've been in where someone is just trying to parrot what they've been told.
Yes. It's like Chinese whispers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't know if you can say that anymore, but
I just did.
yeah.
I think I've never been in that position or a position akin to middle management. So I can't relate.
How about when I was selecting this, I thought maybe the situation you'd be in was when the principal would sit you down and tell you what the department's ideas were. That felt like maybe the closest I could get to where you'd experienced it, but maybe not.
Yes. But you're relating to it as someone who's felt the frustration of needing to fill that role, is that right?
No, I feel the frustration is like watching Ross in this example.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, like kind of like doing like exactly what was captured in that video is that obviously this middle manager has like seen the strategy or like seen what they're supposed to be communicated. They've thought about it themselves, they've invested themselves in it, and now they've come to tell you. Then they've done it maybe not that prepared. They've given you this spiel of it, and you're sitting there watching it, just being like, "This person is embarrassing themselves. So this is really awkward." Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So what does that say about middle management then?
I think when it's done badly,
Yeah.
I think it means that it's this superfluous person.
What is it meant to be?
I guess what it's meant to be is that if you've got a large-ish organisation, you can't have 300 people all report to one person.
Yeah.
Like very tangibly. And so then you're like, great, we need to create like a level of management that kind of puts people into smaller groups or teams or whatever.
But they're not purely meant to exist as a filter, which is how they tend to, or their role tends to play out.
Yes, that's
they're meant
exactly
to be
right.
making decisions on their own.
Yeah. I think you're right in that the term middle manager is the kind of the derogatory perspective. Is the
Derogatory?
I said it right once
Yeah,
and then I couldn't get it again. But yeah, it's the derogatory term for someone who kind of just sits in that role and is like just filtering what management says.
Yes.
Down into the team, and then vice versa. They're kind of projecting up and they're projecting down.
Yes.
With a level of status
Yeah.
that I feel like Ross really embodies. Self-importance. So I think that's the negative. But like in the positive though, it's just like your job is to make sure your team is supported and knows what they're doing and kind of protects them from other things going in the company that could be distracting.
Yeah. Is he incompetent? Is it not the messaging from the upper management that's wrong? It's his interpretation of it?
It feels like in this meme in particular, the thing I took from it is that they're the person mucking it up.
Yes, yeah.
Which is not true in all cases.
No.
It's just in that particular one, I'm like, that seems about right.
Yeah.
Anyway, it could just be a short one.
For sure.
It's funny.
This is potentially off the record, but what that reminds me of, that particular scene, not so much the caption, but the scene, reminds me of my job interview for the foreign language role.
Yeah. That's a story. I've heard it, but I feel like it's worth replaying.
I don't know. It was my first ever formal interview.
Yeah.
I was going for an assistant language teaching position in Japan. And after a very traditional, formal panel interview, question answer, they asked if I would do something for them on the fly. Gave me kind of task, like a teaching task, and said, imagine we are tiny humans. We don't speak any English. You clearly don't speak Japanese. How are you going to teach about Australia?
Yeah.
Basically in charades. I had 10 seconds to turn around and compose myself, and basically, what I imagine Ross is thinking is like, you've just got to commit.
Yeah.
And I ended up hopping around like a kangaroo and kind of burrowing, like an echidna. Do echidnas burrow? I don't even know. At one stage, I was on the ground burrowing at their feet.
Yeah.
That's what I remember. I've blocked a lot of it out. Ended up getting the job, I think purely due to my commitment. But
Yeah.
it was not something I like to revisit.
I love that story. I've loved it the first time you told it and every time I've heard it kind of subsequently in different situations. And the thing I love about, well, there's probably a few things, but one is just the commitment, right? Like just really like, I'm doing this. Gets you, I think.
Can't say no.
Can't say no. And like the minute you're somewhat into something, like there is a moment where you could pull back and it would almost make it worse. Like the fact that you went for it, I suspect, made it less awkward than it would have been if you half-heartedly did it.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
That's what you tell yourself,
Yeah.
for sure.
That's what you tell yourself.
But then the other thing that I like it is there are just lots of situations where your brain just like it just from deep down inside just be like, here's what I got.
Yeah.
And you're like, either you're going to take it or
It's almost like that, the version of me that was actually acting these things out was not in the room.
Yeah.
There was an omnipresent me looking at me, going, you're an idiot,
Yeah.
but not offering any tips or
No, not offering any
Advice.
tips at all. Yeah.
it was a devil on the shoulder moment. But
Yeah. That's look, and I see why it reminds you of that clip, because you can see him being in that moment where he started speaking, went for it.
Yeah.
You recognize that this is going to be humiliating, but like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You're doing it. You're locked in.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay, give us yours.
So mine has to do with, it's short as well,
Yeah.
and it's just a couple of photos with captions. Has to do with parenting.
Great.
Thought it'd be an interesting.
Do you know what's interesting, actually, just as like a bit of a meta commentary before I watch this?
Yeah.
Is that I think of TikTok as a short video platform. And I think anyone who hadn't used TikTok before would describe it as short videos, usually of people dancing.
Yeah. It replaced Vine.
Vine, yeah, or like YouTube. It's like I think it replaced YouTube for a lot of people. But of what we've shared today, 2 of them have been images, or just image captions, post, and
music.
one is like best described as a meme with like Ross talking. So it's not really anyway.
It's evolved.
Yeah, it has evolved. Should I play the music or should I just describe what I'm saying?
You don't need the music.
Yeah, okay. So what I'm looking at is 2 photos, and I think it's, so 2 photos, one of a baby, very safe and secure in a baby capsule that's going to go in a car, being held by a dad. There's nothing covering their face, very safe, all strapped in. And then the caption is, first bringing my son home and being nervous about him being in a car seat correctly. And then second photo is the dad as a baby, or a photo of the dad as a baby with the caption, versus me in the 90s. And this is a picture where barely strapped in at all, heaps of stuff like covering face and head, and just clearly like it's amazing he made it out of the 90s alive.
What kind of straps do they have on the capsule in the second one?
I think it's hard to kind of see, but I think it's just like pretty usual seatbelt straps that are like wrapped up as you would, I think, tie a prisoner down almost.
Not professionally fitted.
Not professionally fitted at all.
No.
If you're listening to this, I think we'll put the receipts of all
Yeah.
of these on our Instagram,
Yeah.
if I've not explained it very well. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. I've seen like a whole series of these actually. I
Yeah.
haven't seen this one in particular, but
Yeah.
I've seen a whole series
Yeah,
of these in particular where it's like how you put a kid down to sleep now versus how you put a kid down to sleep in the 90s. And it is crazy how much stuff has changed.
Yeah. And as to be parents very soon, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah.
Do you think what's your take on the current safety regulations and the way people think about child rearing, especially at that like very early newborn stage?
Yeah, great. I mean, really, I feel like what you've asked is, would you be interested in being cancelled on the internet?
Are you going to endanger our daughter?
Yes. Because no one on the internet has opinions about this at all. There's certainly a right and a wrong answer. No. What I think is like genuinely, like generally happy with increased safety standards.
Yeah.
I don't think we're living in a nanny state.
Yeah.
I think generally safety standards good.
Airflow, important.
Yes.
Remove all hazards.
Hazards.
If you
Like
can.
on board.
Yeah.
But what I do take away from clips like this is one, a level of perspective in that you can worry too much.
Yeah.
Like you should try your best to make your kid as safe as possible based on the knowledge at the moment. But if you forget one night and there's like a bear down the end, or like if you just don't do something perfectly, things will probably be okay.
Yeah.
Is kind of what I take
Yeah.
from that. There's a level of stress or a level of panic that I don't need to worry myself with.
Yeah.
And my other takeaway is I wonder, reflecting on what we do right now, what our daughter will look back 30 years from now going, it was insane they did that.
Yeah. Or maybe she'll say it was insane how stringent they were. Like it might go the other way.
It might go
you
the
know?
opposite
Like,
way. Yeah.
And we already see that a little bit in this kind of more move towards the natural again.
Yeah.
I think that's, you know, a subsection of that is just let kids be kids and let things do what feels right for you. And
Yes.
yeah. So that might happen as well. But what
Totally.
this made me think of is like everyone at whatever stage they're at in an era or in their life is just doing their best.
Yes.
Like there's no
Yeah.
way that those parents cared less. No way that our parents cared less
Yes.
about our safety by sleeping us on our tummies, by putting us in a big pile of pillows,
Yeah.
by selecting that, you know, that car seat was like the best at the time.
Yeah.
We look back on it now and we're like, that's horrendous.
Yeah.
Or even things like cots, you know, oh, that cot is so beautiful. We're like, we can't use it because it doesn't have the right airflow.
Yeah. Yes.
They're like, well,
yeah.
that wasn't available when you were young. You were fine.
Yes.
Everyone's just doing their best.
Yeah.
And I think moving into this like new phase of our lives, just reminding ourselves of that.
Yeah. Look, I think if we do more episodes of this podcast, I'm going to come back to this theme a lot.
Yeah.
But I find parenting advice the funniest subsection of advice ever. In that it's like different from all other kinds of advice in a few different ways. But the way it really strikes me here is that someone can tell you what they did. You know, like I did this, and then it comes like so preloaded that you feel like if you don't do what they say, they're going to be really angry.
Yeah.
Or if you say like, oh, that's not what we're going to do because things have changed, you have to preface it with this like, I acknowledge you weren't trying to kill your baby. Like there's just so emotionally loaded that every choice you make has to be the right one. And nowhere else in society does like, oh, this is what I did.
Just because I'm making this choice doesn't mean you made the wrong choice.
Yes.
That is not what I'm saying.
That's not what I'm saying at all. Yeah, that's
We're
completely.
just both making choices.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Or just like the classic as we're like expected parents at the moment. Like we're expecting is just people to be like, oh, it gets so much worse. You're like, oh, don't worry about the newborn phase. Actually, it's when they're a toddler. And like, oh, don't worry about the toddler phase. When they're a teenager, it's bad. And like, no one like...
Prepare to never have any of your own time ever again.
Ever again.
Prepare to hate your husband.
Yeah.
1 month from now.
Yeah. It's like nowhere else in society where you'd be like, oh, I just got a promotion. And the person leans in, they go, ooh, bet that's going to be more pressure.
Yeah. Get ready to not have any nights to yourself anymore.
Yeah, exactly right. But you just go, oh, congrats.
That's so true. Yeah, congrats. That's good news. And yeah, as things unfold, like,
Yeah.
and this is why, like, and I think millennials feel it especially, why there's pressure to not ever share the negative. Mm-hmm. Everything's a highlight reel.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, I'm going to prove you wrong.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
you're being negative about what my experience is going to be, and now I'm only going to show you the positive because I don't want to admit that you were right about some of these things.
I agree with that completely, but I will also put in this other weird dynamic that I've noticed, and I think this is something that I was pretty unaware of and only was raised to the idea of it because it was something that you felt, which makes me feel like it's something more to do with like a mother's experience than a dad's experience. But I see hesitancy in mothers sharing good things that happen because they don't want to be seen as downgrading someone else's experience. So you couldn't say something like, oh, it was so easy getting my kid to sleep, because you don't want to think the mother who's struggling with that, you're not saying they're a bad mother, which isn't what you were saying, but it means that there's this limit on like good news stories because no one wants to
100%.
suggest anything else.
Yes.
Which I find weird as well.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to share all good and
Yeah,
bad.
I think, I
Balance,
think a little
the
bit.
balance
Like
of
a
life.
balance, yeah, for sure.
Same with business.
Yeah,
Yeah. We're just doing our best.
yeah. That actually feels like a pretty good note to end on, actually.
Yeah, I think so too.
Should we call it?
Yeah.
Great.